There's a form of very real, very impactful Satanism that is all around us, which I'll get into at length. Which brings me to my hypothesis. With a fair and honest hearing of this information, I believe you will see that the vast majority of humanity are Satanists, as evidenced by their behavior. Now, there is a very specific form of Satanism I alluded to earlier that changes the whole face of this topic, and may be where you say, oh, well, if you define it that way. And that is de facto Satanism. And at the heart of this brand of Satanism is what surprised me the most. The god of de facto Satanism is the self, the ego. De facto Satanism is also a low-level variant of the ideology that the masses are sold in place of the real thing. It's an imitation form of Satanism. It's the exoteric version, meant for the uninitiated, with the intention and design of facilitating control over people. So let's get to what I claim will prove not only that, but also my hypothesis that the vast majority of people are Satanists in their actions, in their deeds. Here are 4 characteristics of the satanic mindset, and let's see if they seem familiar. The first is selfishness and egotism. This characteristic of Satanism is the dictum that self-preservation is the highest law. In other words, the physical self's safety and comfort is always more important than doing what is morally right. So live for yourself only and only care about you and yours. And it's a dog-eat-dog world, and if you getting what you want requires you to take advantage of others or treat them poorly, then that's the way of the world. The overarching theme of Satanism is unceasing me thinking. So, would you agree or disagree, if you're being honest, that the vast majority of people in our society subscribe to this mindset? Most importantly, is the behavior consistent with de facto Satanism? I think if we're being honest, it's demonstrably the case that not only most, but practically all people behave that way. And let's not lose sight of the fact that this is how we're taught and encouraged to behave, because with it comes many avenues to maintain control. The second characteristic of Satanism is moral relativism. As I referred to earlier, this type of thinking is not only ego-driven, it is ego as God. Moral relativism is the ideology that there is no objective difference between right behavior and wrong behavior, so that it's then for human beings to arbitrarily create or decide right and wrong for themselves based upon their personal circumstances and preferences. In other words, what we determine to be right for ourselves is right, and what we determine to be wrong for ourselves is wrong. So, would you agree or disagree that the vast majority of people in our society subscribe to the ideology of moral relativism? That there is no absolute right and wrong, and that personal circumstances and desires impact the determination of what is moral and immoral? Before you respond, let's again go to where the real answer lies. Is the behavior consistent with the ideology of moral relativism? Again, it gives me no pleasure to say it, but I think if we're honest, we'd have to agree that describes most, and I would argue virtually everyone in this society and in most. On to the third characteristic of Satanism, which is social Darwinism. This is the extension of the Darwinian theory of the macrobiological evolution in animals that Charlie figured was fine to apply to human beings. His original theory was centered on the idea that the fittest animals, meaning those that are the most dominant, will rule their particular social structure. It's important to recognize that this term is still thrown around today, yet even the wiki refers to social Darwinism as comprised of various pseudoscientific theories. So then the question, once again, being completely honest with ourselves, would you agree or disagree that the vast majority of people subscribe to the ideology of social Darwinism? That the most dominant humans should thrive and rule everyone else? The fourth and final characteristic of de facto Satanism is the never-ending desire for immediate gratification of the senses. Most humans have been conditioned to seek accumulation of the maximum amount of physical gratification possible. It's a state of conditioned response where this desire is so overwhelming, the person lacks the basic willpower to stop engaging in behavior that is contributing to or causing sickness and disease. So the satanic mindset can manifest in the form of ailments, addictions, and poor cognitive function that make people easier to control. Again, if we're honest with ourselves and we take a good look around, how much sickness, addiction of all forms, and questionable cognitive functioning from basically poisonous diets and lifestyle-induced chronic conditions do you see? With the terms that have been defined and the form of the ideology described, I think I've adequately supported my hypothesis that at least the vast majority of people, certainly those in this society, are de facto Satanists. But what do you think?